So welcome, welcome, welcome. Um, I'm excited. I imagine you're excited. It's time for the Nadro course. So let's dive into it. You will likely learn things in this course you previously thought impossible. Now, I know that there are some prior students of mine in this course as well, and they could attest to that, and they do attest to that, that you will learn things, learning this methodology and studying whatnot, that you maybe thought was impossible beforehand. And I'm just serious about that. And it makes me happy. It's an awesome thing, and it will make you happy, and you're going to feel good about it. Some housekeeping. I think you guys know the general format. Mondays, like today, we kick it off. I teach you the content, the topic of the week. Okay. That will be, you'll be given a directive, something to focus on. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday sessions. And I guess the following Monday, right? Because we wouldn't talk until after the close Monday. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Monday is your 5-day trading week now. You'll get nightly reports from me. Those are going to be, again, focused on the topic, right? It's not just going to be like, well, the S&P went up today. No one cares, okay? The topic, the concepts, and the lessons learned day to day from markets relative to them. And then Friday, as you know, that's really where we'll interact the most. I will hold off on questions on Mondays. Fridays will be where we get to questions and whatnot. Now, we will have some more for you in terms of questions, in terms of interacting with each other. And that's going to be the community. And we're going to talk about how to use that, after you hear the lesson today and you want to talk about it with others and start to put questions out there and discuss things. We're going to use the community for that. We're going to create a special place to do that. What to expect? A little bit more of what I said. Learn a concept on Monday. And I'm going to make a request. You all have access to the community now. You can see all the different advanced things with order flow and whatever that people are doing and using. No doubt you're already trying to build out some chart books and get on board with those things. Stop it, okay? Please. I've warned you ever since you got the first sign up email from me. Stay with me, please. Let me guide you here. Don't try and jump ahead. Don't try and get advanced. I want you to learn this as best as possible. And I'm going to request, and I've thought long and hard about it, and I'm going to request that you trust me and stay with me on this as we go through it piece by piece, because you can't just get a brain dump from me and then just internalize it and go use it. It's not going to work. We need to get repetitions in. We need to spend time with concepts. And that's why we're taking this approach. Get as many reps in each day as you can. That could be through using multiple markets. That could be through you just trading and doing the exercises we might ask you to do each week. That might be using market replay. Even for those of you, we have some people who are going to pretty much miss all the live sessions. They're going to just watch the recordings as we go along because of conflicts and time zones and things like that. That's fine. Use market replay. Go back through and look at the sequences, right? Read the nightly reports. That's another way to get more reps. That's ultimately what that is. It's having a pro tell you, here's what I saw with regard to the topic, and allow you to maybe even go back and study those sequences again from now a fresh set of eyes, if you will. Get your questions answered on Fridays. Use the student community. We'll repeat this each week, and each week we'll advance. We'll build upon concepts. We'll work to put it all together, and it's going to be all good. After the course, this is important, right? A lot of times, I think you make a transaction, if you will, you purchase some education, whatever it might be, and you kind of like, well, that was great. What do I ultimately do with this? Not here. Okay. This is what the community is all about. and other things. This is what Apteros is about, and kind of providing that full path from potentially a beginner. We don't really cater to beginners that much. There's so much good free content out there. You work past the beginner stage a little bit on your own, and then plug in with us here. Keep getting reps, keep developing. Once you've spent a few months building up some concepts, or you feel pretty good about where you're at with the NADRO methodology, we have advanced group mentoring. You can get more of a personalized one-on-one small group type interaction to identify blind spots, to be held personally accountable to goals and whatnot, which you won't necessarily get in this. So we can let you spend some time with the material, let you kind of absorb it, let you see it in practice, let you figure out what in the world's going on. And then we can help take you to a next level there with advanced group mentoring. Our hope, the whole reason we're doing any of this is because of the desk. I hope everyone knows that. The whole point is the trading desk. And, quite frankly, I get questioned, not like questioned from people who would be like, well, those who, what do people say? Those who can't do, teach, right? Something like that. You know how the Twitter culture is around trading education. And rightfully so, because it's a nasty, nasty world out there in the trading education space. This will be refreshing for you. This will be real stuff. This will be professionally guided. This will be good, okay? But our hope, and I forgot, the thing that people ask me is that are in the know, that understand what's going on. They say, why do you share that stuff? Why are you sure? Are you worried about losing that edge? Like, it's woof. And look, I agree that it is a little bit scary, but this is a choice I've made. I want to share the information. I want to build a desk, build a team, and that's what we're going to do. First, be unoriginal. You've probably heard me say that before. That's kind of more along the lines of stay with me. Let me guide you here. First, just try and do as I say and be able to replicate things on a simple, basic basis. And then later on, guys, that's when you can become more nuanced, more subjective, develop into your own trader with your own niche and bring things that you've learned elsewhere and incorporate it with NADRO. And that's a beautiful thing, but not right now. Not right now for you new students. Most of your success, most of your development, most of your improvement will come from work done outside of trading hours. Not by clicking the buy and sell button 10 minutes after the open. Okay? It's very, very important to realize. Pyramid of trader development. Okay? What is going on here? I think the ground that it's built on, if you will, is really just kind of basics, right? What is a bid? What is an ask, right? What is a candlestick? That's not what we're going to cover here. Those are things that are easily attainable at no cost all over the internet. But what we start to build our pyramid of development and ultimately what we're striving for here is consistency. That is the goal. It's not to win on the next trade. The goal is consistency. We're going to talk all about how to achieve that. But the first thing we start to build are really what I refer to as some frameworks. And one that we're going to begin with today is the mental framework. And then, we might even make this the next level. There's all kinds of different ways to draw this. In fact, let's do it. Then we're going to build on that with market framework. We're going to talk. I can't talk in draw type at the same time. We're going to talk more about how these things work together today and as we progress. Then we can begin to apply some tactics right? The market framework really tells us like how to see risk reward and how to see where the best opportunities are. And then tactics is about how you exploit those opportunities really, right? And then beyond that, even more granular, I think, is order flow, right? How do you see inside the bars and get even more granular with your tactics and whatnot within the context of market framework and things like that. And then the pinnacle of trader development and working towards consistency is work and development. That's the pinnacle, right? It's actually all the things that go into, like I talked about, outside of trading hours, journaling during trading hours, keeping a log, keeping a journal, keeping statistics, doing reviews, all that type stuff is really the pinnacle of development. A lot of this stuff is information that you can now essentially head right on up here and keep working there. So, lesson 1, mental framework. Without a good mental framework, nothing else will matter, right? It was at the base of our pyramid. Everything else will crumble. And we're going to talk a lot more about that, but I just want to hit you over the head with that right off the bat. Nothing else will work if you don't take what I'm going to teach you in this lesson today seriously. And we're going to talk a whole lot more about that. So the chapters we're going to discuss today are that 1, most fail. And that's just at trading in general. Most fail. Then we're going to talk about the natural human trader. It's a term that I coined for how we show up to markets as just kind of natural, biological human creatures, and how much of a disadvantage we are and how bad we are to show up to play this game. Then we're going to talk about who we want to be as a trader, which is what I call the evolved human trader. We start out natural and we've got to evolve. Number 4, or chapter 4, how does process fit into this picture? Because I think it is important to kind of frame how process is going to work relative to the mental framework and whatnot, and how it all works together to ultimately be a CPT. CPT equals consistently profitable trader. Chapter 5, I'm going to give you a warning. In chapter 6, we're going to talk about actually developing as it relates to the mental framework. And we're going to give you something to do this week to kickstart that development and have a very good exercise. So chapter 1, most fail. Why do most fail? The main things that I've come to know from my experience, from talking to others with a bunch of experience in the industry, is that first and foremost, most traders don't actually have a methodology with edge. They don't have a positive expectancy. Most of these people who don't, right? Most of these people who don't, a lot of them think they do, which is the tough part about it. You might be one of them sitting there. You might be showing up to this lesson today thinking that you've got a good system. And from my experience, you probably don't. And I know that's tough to hear and that's offensive because these systems and methodologies that we develop are like our little babies. And I'm the same way, and we try and be as objective as possible. But the fact is, it's plain and simple, guys. Most don't have an edge, and that's one of the main reasons why they fail. We're going to give that to you in this course, right? We're going to give you NADRO, which is an acronym for the full methodology. And secondly, none of us, and the topic of today is that none of us are naturally wired properly to be CPTs. So we aren't able to do what we're supposed to do when we're supposed to do it, aka execute. You could hand most people an edge and they still won't be CPTs. They either can't see And we're going to talk a lot about, you know what I'm going to teach you today? I'm going to teach you how to see. That's what the lesson is today. We should just rename it. Lesson 1, how to see. Okay. You either can't see or you just act out of habit. The answer to that is today's lesson on mental framework, how to see. So we're going to deliver both to you, but let's keep, I started off, maybe I'm doing a bad job of managing expectations here. You're not going to believe how good this is, right? That was kind of my first slide. We're going to deliver all this to you, but I want to bring everyone back to reality here in terms of this is a 6-week program. It's like you dedicated 6 weeks to becoming a pro tennis player. Are you going to be a pro tennis player after 6 weeks of a great training program with a great coach, with great peers, within a great environment, with great lessons and video review and real life examples, and being able to watch the pro play every morning for the last week of the program? Are you going to be a pro? And the answer is no. No, 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 no. So understand what you're up against here. It's a long journey. It's a path, and we love it because we love markets and we love trading. So let's begin it. Let's begin it. And it could either be a beginning for you here today, or it could be the next step. Maybe it's time to take a step back, ultimately, revamp things. I hope that is the case for some of you. So, quick chapter there. Most fail. And I gave you exactly why I think that's true. Now let's talk about how we show up as the natural human trader. Spoiler alert, and I've already kind of spoiled it before, we show up entirely unequipped to handle trading as our natural human selves. And this little second point here, it's really important. It's not your fault. You're not as uniquely broken and messed up in the head as trading may have you thinking you are right now. Got a little chopped up in the S&P today, did you? Beating yourself up, making some mistakes? I know for sure that I went through quite a phase of thinking and really, literally referring to myself in my journal as a monster. I could not understand how I continued to let myself down. And I talk a lot about that stuff. A lot of you have probably listened to my talk with the Alpha Minds podcast, and I talk a whole lot about that in there. Maybe that could be a good little evening review for you if you haven't listened to that. So it's important for you to realize right now that you need to forgive yourself for how mean you've been to yourself with regard to trading. You're not as broken as you might think you are, because we're naturally bad at this. Even our own biology is against us, right? Hormones, endorphins, like literal physical biological things that occur within us, which create and stir up things and amplify things and do things to us, which make trading difficult. So we have some problems. And I'm not going to give you a white paper on all these things, guys. If you don't believe me on one of these, feel free to contest it on Friday. I'm open to discussing things. And by the way, I'm not an expert on psychology necessarily, but I know from a good bit of experience, and I've seen studies on the following. People make mistakes under pressure, right? An archer who shoots for practice can't miss. An archer who shoots for a pot of gold sees 2 targets, okay? People make mistakes under pressure. We, as natural humans, want to avoid making choices that we'll regret. That's ultimately why there's more hesitation around maybe taking the entry you think you should in markets is we actually don't want to make a choice that we might regret. And we can fix that. We naturally, in a lot of ways, are not so hot at making risk-reward based decisions. A lot of behavioral econ studies have shown that to be true. The way we're brought up, no matter where you are in the world, and we've got people on this all over the world, our education system typically and our societies typically shape us and reward us based on accuracy. And that sets us up for failure in trading. We have natural fight or flight instincts, messes us up in trading. We have naturally occurring biases, right? And I think a lot of biases actually help us in some areas of life. I know that, intellectually we think all biases are bad, but, recency bias probably keeps you alive in the woods. Like, that last interaction with that bear didn't work out so well. Not going to do it this time. We have natural emotions in which high stakes increase specific parts of the brain activity and amplify those type situations and make it difficult to think, to see. And we absolutely, in all areas of life, exhibit discomfort avoidance. We're creatures of comfort. There's a reason that's a phrase. We do not seek out naturally. We do not seek out discomfort, even though that's typically a best practice, I think, in a lot of ways in trading and life. Go towards it, but that's not natural. How do these issues show up in our trading? You guys probably don't need me to tell you this slide. You probably already know. That's why you're here today. But let's go through them quickly. We see the markets as trying to hurt us. The market is this adversary that's against us. It's me versus the market. They're trying to take something from me. I'm going to take it, right? We don't see the opportunity at the hard right edge. If we were all in a room here, I'd say raise your hand if you've seen an opportunity after it already came and gone, but not able to see it in real time, right? A lot of these problems make that to be true. We're not able to execute properly early entries, late entries, even though you know what the right entry is. Fear-based entries, fear-based exits, violating rules we set. We freeze, we don't pull the trigger at all. We pass on good trades. We get into moments of revenge trading. We get on the hamster wheel of looking for the next holy grail, or we're biased based on what worked last time or didn't work last time, and we tweak things. And as you know, so much more. So we don't show up in a good spot, guys. Let's get to some magic here. Ultimately, the problem is that we either, one, don't see things for what they are because of our natural wiring, and or two, we take actions purely based on an impulse, a reaction, a feeling, an emotion based on those things. And or number three, we aren't awake enough as we trade, and we're taking mindless actions. So we can't see things. We can't see the real truth. Emotions and feelings rise up in us and cause us to react to that, taking actions based on those type things. Or we simply aren't awake enough, and we'll talk about that, and we're kind of mindlessly doing some things, which ties in closely with the second point, but is a little different. What are we going to do about this? Are we going to have more willpower? Traders, one of the favorite trading terms is discipline. Buckle down, buck up, work harder. That's what society will tell you, right? Look at recent examples of what would have worked. And again, get into this hamster wheel of changing our methods. There is a better way. I'm just going to toss this first little piece out here real quick. We'll refer to it later in various forms. But at first, we have underlying beliefs. And then there's a stimuli, right? Something happens, which causes natural emotions. And maybe there's an impulse, right? Which is a thought or want to do something, which leads to an action. So just going to plant that real quick, and then let's move on. Discipline is great, but it's not the answer. Discipline is about kind of battling self, I want to do this, but I'm going to be disciplined. I want that extra bowl of ice cream, but I'm going to be disciplined. You're battling. Natural emotions, responses flare up, and you as a trader fight to overcome them. That's not the answer. It might be a band-aid solution. You might could duct tape it together for a while, but there's a better way. The absolute pinnacle of this type of learning is to think differently about ourselves, about markets, think differently about trading and what it is. So we actually change what types of emotions and responses that we have in the first place. You see how that's different? If we can change the way we think about things, if we can change our belief systems, well, then we now interact with the same stimuli, and we now maybe have a lack of the natural, normal human trader emotions, which might lead to impulses to take wrong actions. And we're going to insert some other things into this equation as well. Two main models as a solution here, okay? Mental framework, which we're going to talk all about today, and process, which we're going to talk about going forward. Mental framework is what's going to teach us to see clearly, to take conscious control over what we do. Because ultimately, what is the problem with this natural human trader? Like, we keep distilling it down into like, here's issues we have, here's how it shows up in the market. But really, what's the problem? The problem is that we lose objectivity. We no longer see the truth. Things are filtered, things are colored, things are tainted. And we must evolve our thinking, right? What is objectivity? I think most of us know, right? You know, it's a person or judgment not influenced by personal feelings or opinions. The natural human trader can't see the truth. Not always, but when the stakes become high, when frustration mounts, when different things happen, when fear arises, as it naturally does, these things prevent us from seeing what's really at the hard right edge. So we got to change this in order to do that. Mental framework is about teaching you to see. And then process, right? To know what to look for and make decisions with what we see, right? Step 1, step 2, step 3, here's the filters, here's what you look for, those type things. So if we develop a proper mental framework so that we can see clearly, now we need to know what to see and what to do based on what we see. And that's what process gives us. It's all about seeing and then ultimately doing. A CPT equals a quality mental framework plus a process with edge. So we're wired wrong. The answer is to not be more disciplined. Ultimately, being objective is what we're after. We naturally fail to see things clearly. We lose objectivity. We have to change our beliefs. We have to change about how we think about trading. And by the way, therefore, how we feel, so that we can perceive opportunities in real time, so that we can make proper decisions based on those perceptions, those good, real perceptions. It's really, really important, guys. It's like a two-legged stool doesn't stay up, right? You can't cut off one of the legs of a stool. If you cut off the mental framework from our stool, you will be on the ground. No great trading strategy, NADRO included, will fix this core problem. Only work around mental framework is going to help. So, shall we talk about the upside, the fixes, where we need to get to? Let's get to it. The evolved human trader, chapter 3. So 4 things we need in order to, quote, get evolved. Number 1, understand more about ourselves, the natural human trader, which we've been doing. Number 2, learn and embrace the real, true nature of markets, not some idealized version that we might have. Number 3, realize what trading really is, not some idealized fairy tale version of that either. And number 4, be mindful, be self-aware. Learn about ourselves, learn about markets, learn what trading is, and be mindful. Those are the 4 things we're going to need. So we're going to start with 2 out of 4 because number 1, the natural human trader, we've already become well versed in. So the nature of markets. We can understand them. It's true. That's kind of what I meant on that first slide. Like, you're going to learn things in this natural course you might previously have thought impossible. So don't let some non-directional options trader tell you that it's literally impossible to time markets or see moves as they unfold or before they unfold. It's not true. But here's the kicker. We can never predict them with any certainty whatsoever. So are we wasting our time here? What's going on? Why is that true? Why can we not predict markets with certainty? And this is important to believe and to build a belief system upon, guys. So here's one irrefutable, undeniable, unquestionable truth. Anything can happen at any time. And we're specifically talking about in markets here. Anything can happen. Flash crash, okay? A global news event. Some Bridgewater, hedge fund, pension fund, whatever, decides to get really aggressive with their orders and starts moving the whole market. A single large trader might get aggressive or put up some huge size or something, and then the algos react to that, and other momentum traders pile in and react to that, and then other people stop out and are in a reaction to that. It's like a butterfly effect, right? Just because one large trader did something substantial, right, that affected the market. Or anything else can happen. Anything can happen. And it's true. You cannot deny this. There is no magic formula to the markets that just predicts things with any degree of certainty. It doesn't exist because markets are too complex and anything can happen at any time to change what's going on in markets. It doesn't matter how good your analysis is, NADRO included, how good your setup is. Anything can happen to disrupt what otherwise would have been that wonderful trade that we had planned for. So we simply can't predict markets with any certainty. This means that what we're dealing with here is a high degree of randomness in markets. I know randomness is a very complex topic, but when I say it, I mean it like the guy from Alabama, I am. Okay. Just simple randomness, not the complex stuff that you Taleb people learn. Just stuff that you can't predict, that just anything can happen and there's no way of you knowing it. Just basic definitions of randomness. You must wholeheartedly adopt this truth. It will liberate you. It will allow you to see more clearly, and we're going to talk about it. The natural human trader gets into trouble because they don't actually accept this truth. So they lose that important objectivity. They have a losing trade. Was that bad analysis on my part? Something I could do better? Oh, you know what? If I put RSI on my charts, it told me not to do that. Stupid. Is the market evil? Is it mean? Did I get screwed? Are they out to get me? And my personal favorite, the algos, right? A catch-all for it didn't work out for me and it's not my fault. These algos, I tell you what, can't compete. Not true. Accepting the randomness and real uncertainty of markets prevents us from losing our calm and objective state. It allows us to see, to more easily see this objective truth of the hard right edge through our analysis, rather than us getting blinded by emotion, our natural instincts, natural fears. It's all about being able to see. And this is one of the really, really important beliefs that will begin to allow us to stay more objective and not get into getting upset over something like a losing trade or thinking that you can change to prevent that losing trade. There's a lot of randomness in markets, and you have to accept that. If you're truly uncertain about what the market might do next, you'll find yourself less stressed, less emotional, less tense, less fearful, and therefore able to see things as they are more clearly. Embrace it. Again, it's reality, guys. So that's what markets really are. What is trading really? Ask anyone with experience, that knows what trading is. Ask them what trading is. You'll hear all kinds of answers along the lines of ultimately placing bets on which way the market will go. Obviously, that's a directional type trader, which is really all we care about within our focus and world here. Or a boilerplate here. Well, by analyzing blah, 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 insert whatever tool or method or data or whatever, we can exploit blah, 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 right? These things are true. Those are good definitions of what trading is about. But ultimately, what any trading style comes down to is math. And it doesn't matter. I'm not saying that you're all quants. I'm saying that no matter if you're using the sunspots to make your trade decisions, ultimately your results come down to math. And that's what we call expectancy, or in the case of a profitable trader, positive expectancy. An unprofitable trader would have negative expectancy. What is expectancy? The formula is you essentially take your win percent, how often you're right, and you multiply that by, kind of on average, how much you make when you're right, minus how often you're wrong, and on average, how much you lose when you're wrong. And that gives you your expectancy. So if that's zero, it's break even. If it's positive, it's profitable. If it's negative, you're losing money. That's what it all comes down to. When I analyze what my desk traders are doing, I don't really care as much about the actual hard expectancy number, but I do look at very closely at the components that go into expectancy, which ultimately is what I break down into two things: win percent, because loss percent is just 1 minus win percent. And then the ratio, as well as the individual components of average winner to average loser. That's what we look for to see how good of a trader you are. So for an expectancy example, just for the basics for some folks, what if we were to flip a coin and, if you win $1. If I win, you lose $1 to me. If you win, I pay you $1. If you lose, you pay me $1. What's going to happen in that game over time? It's going to be an expectancy of 0, right? We're going to break even. Nobody's going to win. We might have streaks. You might get lucky for a while. I might get lucky for a while. But if we do it enough times, the law of large numbers will come back to haunt one of us and take the money back, and we will end up kind of net. What's the expectancy of this? Well, it would be 50% times 1 minus 50% times 1. It equals 0, right? Now, what if we played a game where if you call the coin flip correctly, I pay you $2, and if you lose, you call it incorrectly, you pay me $1. Well, that's a game you want to play. You're going to mint money from me over time. You might go down. You might have 4 or 5 losing flips in a row where you have to pay me and then pay me and then pay me and then pay me. And you're thinking, what's wrong with this coin? Naturally. But if you keep playing that game, you come out ahead. And kind of a little side note here as we talk about expectancy and the things that go into it, I strongly suggest that you focus on risk reward, shaping the risk reward of a trade so that you shape and mold that average winner compared to your average loser. Skew this in your favor, right? People refer to this as asymmetry. And then really let go of the outcome. Don't worry as much about win percent and accuracy and being right. And we're going to talk a whole lot more about that. The easiest, best example of expectancy being used properly that I could ever think of, that Mark Douglas could ever think of, that Trade Like a Casino book could ever think of, is a casino. What do? They design a game. They understand the expectancy, right? The win percent, that type of stuff. They set rules to manage risk. And then what do? They focus on executing well. They focus on making sure with a pit boss and security and video cameras that the game is played as it should be, right? That no one's cheating them, that there's, no weird stuff going on, and the rules are followed. And they train their employees and all that kind of stuff so that this game gets executed properly. And then lastly, they understand beyond a shadow of a doubt that sample size matters. Remember when we were talking about flipping a coin? Even if you won, let's say that I said, okay, it's me and John. John, if you call it right, I'm going to give you $10. If you call it wrong on the coin flip, you owe me $1. That's a game you're really excited about playing. But guess what? We could flip it and you could lose. We could do it again and you could lose, right? You could have a string of 4, 5, 10 losses in a row. You have to understand that those type of short-term sequences are part of the nature of a probabilistic, game, a game with odds of one thing happening over another, right? 50-50, 60-40, who knows? But at the end of the day, a small sample of one event, 5 events, it doesn't matter. You have to let the numbers play out over meaningful sample size. So that's what a casino does. And they actually, try and get as much sample size as they can. Free drinks, keep the lights on 24/7. You don't know what time it is in there. Keep the sample size coming, because we know the more rolls of the dice, the more flips of the card, the more our expectancy has a chance to play out. And it will play out. Expectancy in trading. Looks like a pretty dang similar model here. We design a system, we'll just call it that instead of a game. We understand its expectancy. We set rules to manage risk. We focus on executing well, and we understand that sample size matters. This is what trading is. It's like you are now the casino business. This is what trading is. Another topic along this line is that we have to embrace risk. A casino embraces risk, don't they? They allow you to come in and take risks. They take risks. When you put a bet down, you're taking a risk, but so are they. And in fact, if we were to walk over to a roulette table or go play one hand of perfectly played blackjack or whatever, they don't have much of an edge at all, right? There's is it 36 numbers on a roulette wheel, and European style roulette, there's only 1 0, which the house is going to win unless you were to bet that number. So if you bet on red or black, which half the numbers are red, half the numbers are black, except for that 1 green 0, that's how they get their edge. So it's just slightly less than 50% when you place that bet and when they accept that bet. So they want to take that risk. So what do we need to do as traders? We need to embrace risk. You have to, no pain, no gain, no risk, no reward. This is true in life. No matter how safe your business might seem, you're taking risks with any business in order to get compensated. It could be an unforeseen risk, right? How many businesses thought that they were going to go out because of COVID, right? But guess what? It was a risk that customers would stop coming through the doors. So How much, this is, I did a video on this the other day. You guys may have seen it. How much do I want? Very important that we want to take risk. How much do I want to risk in order to find out uncertainty if the next trade is going to work or not? A real possibility because of the uncertainty. We know the outcome is uncertain because of the random nature of markets. We know that the outcome of this particular trade is meaningless because we now understand that edge only comes over sample size. You don't just put on a trade because the analysis is good and expect that it works. We have to put risk on in order to trade. It's part of what trading is and what we're doing. So we want to put on risk where it's appropriate to do so. That's where process comes into play, right? We're no longer afraid now. We can let go. Is the casino, maybe the imagine, put yourself in the shoes of, let's say you own a casino and you understand the games and the edge and what you're trying to do and execute and get the sample size. You understand all that. And you're strolling around and you see someone put, $1,000 on a roulette wheel spin. Are you absolutely terrified of the outcome of that? Maybe your first day on the job or something, you might be like, ooh, I certainly hope we win. Okay, whew, we won, right? Or, oh, dang, that's $1,000 out our pocket right there, right? But once you see that over sample size, it's happening, you have wins, you have losses, but the edge plays out, which is where you get confidence and you have the same thing occur as a trader. You're no longer afraid of those individual outcomes. You can let go of being emotionally invested in those type of outcomes. We're going to talk a lot more about letting go. So what's our job as a trader? Given all this massive uncertainty, what can we actually know? Very short list. We can know what an opportunity looks like. Process is going to give that to us later. We can know how much we risk. Remember, we want to risk to find out if it's going to work. And then we can have, a process in place to pay ourselves if and when trades go in our favor. But we have to be able to see clearly so that we can see the proper opportunities and that we can act with conscious control rather than impulsively or mindlessly. Speaking of being mindful, chapter 4. Think of being mindful kind of like staying awake, right? Versus allowing yourself to kind of drift off to sleep. You can be self-aware, aware of yourself. You can take conscious, right? You're able to really think about, here's an action I want to take, rather than most of us, we spend a lot of our lives, there's a lot of great books on this out there, but we run around and acting out of habits. I call this kind of autopilot mode. You get sucked into a short-term chart and you start looking at like little bitty blips and order flow. And then next thing you know, you're in a trade and you really didn't consciously think that through. Now, I think a ton of self-awareness comes down to making a choice to be mindful or self-aware. Think about it. Are we gonna, let's say that we're in a high school gymnasium and there's been a sad event in the community and we have a moment of silence. Are you just gonna just burp really loud during the moment of silence? Because like, oh, I wasn't really thinking, I wasn't self-aware. You'd have to be a little off for something like that to happen, right? But if you're maybe you're sitting around in your sweatpants trading and you don't really, there's no one else around you or whatever, you might burp, right? I do. So, are you going to go on a first date and sit down with this beautiful person and you're really interested in them? Are you going to kind of forget and start picking your nose, right? These are kind of crude examples, but I think that you might relate with them and they might stick in your memory here. I think a lot of self-awareness comes down to making a choice that the moment is important enough to be self-aware. Take care of business here, okay? I I I think that it's really important, and a lot of being mindful. We do have a bit of a choice now. We could get complex here. We could talk about emotional intelligence and being self-aware and developing self-awareness, which we will. But I just want to say right off the bat that before we get to any of that stuff, I think you have a choice, and I think you can do a better job just by wanting it bad enough. But the problem is, and we'll talk about motivations in a later part here, but the problem is that people don't actually want to be mindful. They want to win the next trade. So motivations are important here. I'm asking you to make being mindful a priority. Two things to notice. Actually, it's three. We can notice emotion. And the fact that, or the act of noticing emotion separates you from that emotion in a sense. You become an observer. You can form judgments as to whether your potential actions, remember that little belief systems, impulses, remember that little sequence of events? Well, if you notice emotion, it allows you to kind of figure out on a more conscious level as to whether the action you were maybe thinking of impulsively doing makes sense or not. So we can notice our emotion by being mindful. We can notice with our senses. These are physical type things. What's your posture? Are you tense? Are you leaning forward in your chair? Are you got a death grip on something? Are you grinding your teeth? Is your heart pounding? How's your breathing? Have you stopped breathing? Physical things. You can notice with your senses. Self-talk. There you will find things that perhaps you mumble or even just talk in your inner dialogue when you're upset. And you can learn your triggers, and you can learn to your red flags. Whoop, I just gave the market a big expletive here. I typically only do that when we're headed to Tilt Town. You can notice things like that before they actually boil up and become a real problem in your session that day. And a lot of what we're going to talk about with mental framework, remember, is preventing the band-aid fixes of needing to battle those things. So mindfulness is fantastic, and it's going to be a key component in one of our main areas we're talking about here. But a lot of the belief system work about the natural human trader, about what markets really are, what trading really is, you might find yourself more relaxed in general and needing to lean on the mindfulness a little less because you're not getting as triggered. You're not cussing out the market under your breath because you understand. You can see clearly. And we can notice our motivations. This is really, really important. One of the deepest quotes ever said by one of the market wizards, I believe it was Ed Seykota, everyone gets what they want from the markets. And I alluded to this just a couple minutes ago around what's your motivation, right? Do you want to be mindful, to be self-aware? Or do you just want to play the gambler's game of putting your hopes and dreams on the next trade? Everyone gets what they want from the markets. So you need to be very aware, both on a macro and more so this conversation, a micro level, noticing your motivations, right? So, if you find yourself wanting to get long, where you just stopped out of a trade and maybe the thesis was convincingly violated and invalidated, and you now find yourself wanting to just hop right back in, well, the motivation for that might be just because the market just took something from you and you want it back, right? You're uncomfortable because you're down. The market just took $1,000 from you. You want to remove that discomfort. You want to win. There's all kinds of motivations we might have other than trading well based on our process. But if you're not mindful, if you're floating around in autopilot mode, if you're asleep, so to speak, you're never going to notice those motivations, and you're going to keep making the same mistakes that all the natural human traders make. So motivations are important. I think that you can make a choice and improve it. And I think it also takes attention and practice to hone in and develop as well. Letting go is a big deal. Okay, in the chat, who knows this quote? Train yourself to let go of everything you fear to lose. Who said that? Okay, if it takes long enough, I know you're all Googling it and getting the answer. The answer is Yoda from Star Wars. I should have used the accent. You would have nailed it. Train yourself to let go of everything you fear to lose, right? Think about how that ties in with my archer example and pressure. Pressure comes from like the fear of the downside of things a lot of times, right? That outcome that we don't want to face. So when we shoot an arrow for practice, we can't miss. We're the best that's ever been. But when we shoot an arrow for a pot of gold, we see 2 targets. So we have to let go of everything that you fear to lose. Hold weaker opinions, not stronger opinions. Take yourself less seriously. Be realistic with these truths that we're talking about here. Understand the uncertainty, the randomness, the lack of dadgum importance on any individual trade outcome. Practice mindfulness, write things down, get honest feedback from others. Don't judge yourself in the moment, just observe. You can correct. I'm not saying that we're all patsy positives over here and like everything is good, kumbaya, there's nothing negative. No. You can observe a negative, you can admit a negative, but you don't have to really harshly judge yourself for that. You can understand that natural human trader and have some sympathy and grace with that, and then make the right decision despite those type things. But there's a lot of things that come into letting go with trading, and a lot of this is interconnected with all the things we're talking about. 4 things to get evolved, right? We understand more about ourselves as the natural human trader. We learn the real nature of markets, uncertainty, and we realize what trading really is, that mathematical equation at the end of the day. And then we need to be mindful. This is what the evolved human trader internalizes. Let's look at a few examples. On entries, The natural human trader, I know, and I got into a student earlier today about this. I know exactly what's about to happen here. What are you setting yourself up for there? You're setting yourself up for failure in the sense that you now create an environment where if what you thought to be certain isn't, there's cognitive dissonance, and now all of a sudden your judgment's all clouded and maybe you're pissed off and you can't see. Today is about learning to see. So a natural human trader says, I know exactly what's about to happen here. The evolved human trader says, I really have no clue what's going to happen next. And quite frankly, I don't care, because I understand how trivial it might be for me to get worked up or really invested and care so much about what does happen next. Natural human trader might say, oh, I don't want to miss out on this. It could be huge. The evolved human trader might say, I'll monitor for what I define as a trade opportunity. If I get one, I'll take action. Stop outs. Natural human trader. Algos again. Those damn algos, I tell you what. Evolved human trader. One meaningless stop out here. One of many that I'll have over the next 20 trades I take. My win percent is 45%. So, over half the trades I'm going to take over the next 20 trades are probably going to be losers, just like this one was. Next. You see the difference there? These algos, I mean, they're running my stops. Okay, all right. What about in trade management? Natural human trader. Come on, baby. Come on. Go up, go up. Come on, just this once. Come on. Right? Evolved human trader. I'll monitor what the market's telling me here so I can manage my trade accordingly. The evolved human trader sounds really boring, doesn't he? Sounds like really quite a dull person. What do professional poker players say that the game becomes to them? What do a lot of the best traders say that the game becomes? It should become more boring, guys. We're not in this for a rush. If you're in this for a rush, it is not going to work out nicely for you. You want to be a professional? That's what I'm here to teach you. What about exits? Natural human. I'm taking profits here. Last time I didn't do that and I really got burned. I'm not going to let that happen again. Right? I mean, I laugh at this, but I mean, maybe half the people on this call did that today. Like, I don't know. And I'm not judging. It's just, it's funny once you get to higher levels and you can look back on what you used to be and you can laugh. The evolved human trader might say, I'll exit when I'm supposed to, when my process tells me. What happened on the last trade has no bearing on this one. There's a massive difference between how we naturally arrive to trading and how we must evolve in our thinking if we want to thrive, if we want to get to CPT status. We have to understand that we are flawed as it relates to being naturally ready to be good traders. We're totally messed up for it. We have to embrace the uncertainty that exists in trading and markets. We have to know what trading is really all about. It's not about your perfect analysis. It's not about being right. It's not about unlocking the key to the markets. You have to, I really like this analogy of like this steering wheel that you as the natural human trader are just have a death grip on both hands, 10 and 2. white knuckling this steering wheel, and you think you're driving the trading car with all your anxiety and wanting and rooting and cheering and cursing and all this stuff. And guess what? It's all been a big joke. The steering wheel that you're gripping is not even connected to the car. It connects to the dash right there, but it doesn't connect to any mechanical systems of the car to actually control the car. It's totally outside your control. And you're over there just gritting your teeth, going crazy, trying to steer that car. And it's all futile. You got to let go. And we have to be mindful. We have to take conscious control over our actions. We have to pay attention to our motivations for wanting to do something or our feelings. This will put you in the best possible position to now go and trade well, to see. And we'll define what trading well is like as we dive into more of the NADRO specific strategy, tactics. Speaking of process, how does it fit in with all this? Remember, a CPT equals a quality mental framework plus a process with edge. Ultimately, that's pretty much it. That's how it fits in. What is process, though? A series of actions or steps taken in order to achieve a particular end. The problem is the motivation behind people's particular end, even though they think they're process-based. What's your particular end that you're taking a series of actions and steps for? Well, it needs to be to trade well. What is trading well? It's wanting to take risk where you're supposed to. That's what trading well is. So remember the little equation where we started with beliefs and whatnot? Let's go back to that. We first have, actually, let me draw it from kind of the bottom up. We first have beliefs. And you could consider these underlying beliefs, right? But beneath the surface, kind of. That's kind of how they operate. And we've got to put in work to fix these for trading. And we need that so that we can see clearly. Remain objective, right? And what happens is that something happens, right? Let's say there's some external force, right? Event or whatever, which gives us what I call an impulse, right? It could be an emotion, driven by an emotion at least. It could be an idea. It could be a feeling. And then the natural human trader, as we know, has the flawed beliefs, so they're not seeing clearly. And so they act on these impulse or emotions and whatnot, and it's not great. So really what kind of happens there, let's kind of segment. This will be the natural human trader. Really, they have those flawed beliefs. And they have something that happens, stimuli, we'll call it, right? The market does something, they did something on their last trade, whatever it is, and they have that same impulse, again, based on those flawed beliefs. And what happens? It goes straight to action. So now come back over to me with the evolved human trader. We have better beliefs so that we can see clearly. And then something happens, which we get an impulse or an idea or a thought to do something or whatever. And then what do we do? We're mindful. We say, oh, I just noticed the fact that I want to get long here. I just noticed that I'm really afraid all of a sudden of this position I have on. I want to exit it. And so now what can we do? We can put that into what we call market generated information. We can observe, okay, being mindful allowed me to notice the idea that I had. Let's look to the market. Let's filter that information through a process. And then that can lead to an action. Very different models here that all begin with the foundation of having the proper beliefs. And that's what we've been talking about all day today, are those beliefs around you, markets, trading, all that stuff, and the additional concept of being mindful. So this is where process fits in. And process, we're going to talk a whole lot more about process because it is complex. Markets are complex, and we need to teach you what to look for. But this whole deal has to work here so that you can see clearly enough to use your process through the lens of actual market generated information to then take appropriate actions a high degree of the time. This is like very, very, very important model here. So I just wanted you to understand how process fits into the equation. It's not really what we're going to talk about all day today. Remember the twofold fix: mental framework to see clearly and be mindful of our actions, and then process in order to know what to look for and what to do about what we see. So we're going to talk a whole lot more about process the rest of the time, but we're going to continue to refer back to mental framework. Warning: you will not walk away from this talk enlightened and automatically become different. You won't just go from natural human trader to evolved human trader. Number 2, warning: you still might think you have mental framework all solved now, and you know how to really think differently now because you're sitting there, wow, Merritt, this is not great. This makes sense. I've got it figured out. And now you're an evolved human trader? Well, you aren't. You might heed this warning and decide to heed the following, or just that past advice on number 2, but then it's not much fun. You'd rather focus on charts. You'd rather focus on your entries and your indicators and cumulative delta when we start talking about that. And you're most likely not put in the proper work. And you will, in order to get to evolved human trader, you will be required to put in work on this. Even if you nodded your head during this talk, it's not good enough. The only way you'll get from natural human trader to evolved human trader is by sustained effort, giving a lot of energy and time to over sustained periods of time with consistency. It's the only way it's going to happen. So moving on to chapter 6, developing. Just kidding. Warning, you probably still aren't an evolved human trader even after hearing my warning. Now, mental framework, chapter 6, developing the mental framework. Frequent focus and effort sustained over a considerable length of time. I'm going to give you some things to do. We're going to talk about some stuff, but we could almost end the talk on this slide. You've got to just get in there. You've got to think about it. You got to journal about it. You got to focus on it rather than just focusing on the dang charts, guys. You probably don't need to go lay down on a couch and talk about your relationship with your mother or lack thereof. Make it a priority. Most do not. Most fail. Think about your mental framework. Get serious about that as something that's important in your trading. Wrap mental framework concepts or work into your daily routines. Now, a little caveat here just popped into my head. I think some folks go too far with getting too complex about mental framework. Like, psychologists, like they can get really, really deep and really, really out there with a lot of stuff. Next thing you know, you're like, I don't know, doing something that's, you're starting to get a little weird. Okay. I really want to keep this to the basics. I really want to keep this pretty standard here when I mean that you got to get really serious about it. You got to work on it. I don't mean that you have to hook electrodes up. Okay. Sustained energy and effort over time. Sometime during the pre-market preparation, which you should all have, and we'll talk about throughout this course, spend some quiet time, right? We're always in the phones, the TVs, the screens, right? Always entertainment, something coming at us. We lose that inner voice. This is a societal thing that is one of my biggest issues personally. But anyways, not my biggest personal issue. One of my biggest soapboxes with society right now is what I mean. So you need some quiet time. You need, to be able to connect with yourself rather than almost blocking out yourself with all the external stimuli. That's kind of what society's all about. So spending some time, however you like to, meditation, prayer, it all works in the same benefits. Visualizations. These open up some pathways for success with all kinds of elite performers. Proven. Go look at the white papers. It works. Setting goals, and both trading and personal, I think can help with your awareness, because if you connect, especially like in a pre-market prep, with a goal or something, it can help ground you, right? Apteros. It can help ground you with who it is that you really want to be. And it can aid with that conscious choice to be a little more aware of what you're up to and not mindlessly do a bunch of stupid crap. Goals can help you with that. And connecting with them before you trade can help you with that. Self-check-in, right? It's kind of almost repetitive in a sense, but be aware if you're very emotionally upset, had a fight with the spouse, something, just lost a loved one, whatever the case may be, to varying degrees. You need to check in. You need to make sure that you're okay emotionally. You need to make sure that maybe if you get COVID, it's not a great idea to be trading. You might be too sick to trade. That's another thing to check in. So physical well-being, you could be too tired, you could be too emotionally upset, you could be too physically sick, those type of things. You need to check in. And a little extra bonus, a confidence rating. You've been beat up the past few days, feeling a little underconfident. Be aware of that and rise above it. The simple act of being aware can help you detach from that state. You overconfident? You've been up in your size lately and you just can't miss? Well, guess what? You might have a drawdown headed your way, and a nasty one. So be aware that you're a little overconfident can detach you from that state and help you be aware in the moment, be more serious about minding your risk and not doing something boneheaded because you've been having some success. You can observe and journal throughout the session. This is probably one of the biggest things. Again, observing the emotion removes you and allows you to be an observer of the emotion. It helps with being mindful and working on the mental framework. Incorporate mental framework into your pre-market. Incorporate mental framework into your post-market. How did you do today at that? Review the journal from some psychological posts. You could have goals around mental framework. You can have exercises that you were supposed to do throughout the session. You can add that to your review process. The 0535, go to apterostrading.com, go to the blog, check out the 0535 exercise. You could make that more based around mental framework than, more purely around getting a contextual read at those half-hour increments. I think my all-time favorite in terms of an exercise is executions with affirmations. And it's quite simply, you put on a trade, and as soon as you're in the trade and your stop set, whatever, you now go to the journal and you write down an affirmation that speaks to a quality mental framework. More to that later. You can use a loop timer, something that just goes beep, beep, beeps at you, whatever frequency that seems to be appropriate. How often are you, quote unquote, drifting off to sleep? How much help do you need coming back to conscious control? Every half hour? Every half second? What do you need? You can use a little loop timer, and I use a free one online. You can just Google it, loop timer, and works on a browser, and you just minimize it and it runs. You don't have to go turn it off. It just goes beep, beep, and that's it. You just like, oh, hello, was I drifting off there? Let's come back. You can learn your triggers, learn the sequence of events that tend to set you off and cause you to deviate. And you can use stats, monitoring them and focusing on stats with a focus on sample size. And this really comes full circle. Like, we're looking at our stats and we're understanding that the stats are only meaningful over decent sample size. Just like when you're in the moment trading, building up stats one by one, you now understand that the goal is those 20, 30 trades. It's not this one trade. So it really does come full circle. The more you focus on your stats in sample sizes, really taking control of the stats and thinking, I'm not going to look at it unless it's in a sample size that's important to me. You're reshaping your mental framework by doing those things. So that is what I had for you today. Let's talk about developing specifically this week. We want to begin the difficult work of reshaping our thinking and beliefs. It's not as fun as trading, guys. Nobody wants to put in this work. It's very rare, but it has to be done. I'm sorry. It has to be done. Shaping habits of working on our mental framework. We're going to do that this week. Shocker, huh? We're going to begin to observe ourselves, begin to experience that. We're going to trade markets in a simple way and observe ourselves while doing that. We're going to start the good habit of journaling. Journaling is while you're trading, during the session. We're going to get comfortable with it, and we're going to see the power of it. The exercise. We're going to trade based on some simple rules, which I'll explain to you. Here's really step one of the exercise. I want you all to come up with 5 affirmations that are really impactful to you from this lesson. Example. Hey, Merritt, half your trades are going to be losers. Half your trades are losers. So guess what, Sherlock? this one could easily be a loser. It's got a little bit of a negative hint skew to it there, the way I said it. So you don't want to be really negative with yourself, but you can have fun with it. It's fine to call yourself short. That's fine. But an affirmation that really connects to something that you heard today, it could be verbatim. I suggest you try and come up with your own wording in ways. Come up with 5 of them. Write them down and refer to them as you complete the exercise. Before you start trading in the pre-market, and then one of the 5. And if you really want to get fancy, you could come up with like another one in the moment, or just try and, like, again, it's almost like meditation, like thinking on it, focusing on that. You might come up with a new affirmation in the moment. Write it down, use it. Might be the best one you came up with. So I don't know what that sentence is supposed to say, but it's, well, what it says, but what it's supposed to say is, before you begin trading pre-market, I want you to go through all the affirmations that you have on your list. Think about them, kind of let them marinate with you. And then during the trading sequence, after you get your entry and your stop and your target set, write one of them down. You could do that with pen and paper. You could do it in something like Evernote, or all the latest rage now in the student room with the Notion. And then bonus points if you can say it out loud. Use more senses, it becomes more impactful to you. So we come up with our affirmations. We're going to follow these trading rules precisely. We're going to execute flawlessly with a process. We're going to journal throughout the session. Again, could be physical or digital journal. Write down those affirmations, like I said, with every entry. And then you want to journal, is this effortless? Or am I experiencing like emotion rising up, conflict as I try and do this? Write down other thoughts or feelings or fears that you objectively observe. Just note them, write them down. Don't judge yourself. And get back to the task of executing flawlessly and continuing to observe yourself and writing the affirmations with every new entry. That's the exercise. How are we going to trade? We're going to focus, and what you're going to hear from me is around the S&P. I'm going to use a 3,000 volume chart. We're going to set this chart up together, so don't worry. With a standard Heikin Ashi, it's an indicator you add to overlay on top of the candles of the price chart, and a slope-colored VWAP. If you use a software that can't do that, no worries. You could do all kinds of you just have to come up with your own way of giving essentially a trend filter, and you could simply use above or below VWAP if you wanted. And you're going to trade the following methodology, which you could already guess what it is. If the slope of VWAP is positive, and the past 4, this is to get long, by the way. So if the slope of VWAP is upwards, and the past 4 or more, at least 4 bars, have been Heikin Ashi down bars. We're going to explain this more. I'm just going to run through it here. And the current bar is now an up bar. Enter 1 contract long by market. Place your stop underneath the entry bar low and set a sell limit order for 2R. There's the formula below for what 2R would be for a long. I'll just say it in layman's terms, which is easier than looking at that formula for some. If your stop is 10 cents away, set a 20-cent target. For a short, same chart, same 2 indicators. If the slope is downward and the past 4 or more bars have been up bars with Heikin Ashi, and then you get a Heikin Ashi bar that closes, right? It's a down bar, confirmed. Sell market, one contract. Place your stop above the entry bar high and go for a 2R profit target with that formula. So let's have a look at a chart where I have this set up. And in fact, let's remove everything. So now, what have I done? I have a chart of the S&P, E-mini S&P. You could do this in sim, maybe with the ES. You could also do this live with one micro contract. You're not going to go broke. You bought an expensive course here. You're not going to go broke trading one micro live. If you're comfortable doing that, do it. You're probably going to lose money. Doesn't matter. It's not going to be much, but it will amplify this exercise. So anyways, 3,000 volume chart, right? Most of you are familiar with, price bars where you set like a 3-minute chart. Well, you can set a volume chart. You can set it to 3,000 volume, 3,000 contracts come through. It makes a new bar. After 3,000 contracts, it makes a new bar. I've got this chart set to an RTH chart, pit session from 9:30 till 1600 Eastern. You could set it to a 24-hour chart. Doesn't really matter. I'm going to use RTH for what I do. So now let's add our Heikin Ashi, analysis, studies. Start typing it in. There it is. There are no settings. We're not using a smooth version. It's a smoothing indicator on a standalone basis. We don't need to smooth it further. And there are display settings, right? Like, in fact, it's set to high-low bars, which is going to look like that. Or you could set it to candlesticks or whatever. So, hey, we'll leave it on the high-low bars. It does look weird at the open when there's a gap or something like that, but it doesn't really matter. We'll need to let price settle in once we open with VWAP and whatnot. Anyways, so let's add VWAP. Volume weighted average price. And I think that's what it looks like by default. And so let's go into our settings. Let's get rid of this top band and bottom band 1. Set them to ignore like everything else. And the VWAP, we will turn on auto coloring based on slope. And then let's make a nice blue and a red. So there you go. It could get a little tricky. So just pay attention to what the slope color is. Today, you see how VWAP was up, down, because it was perfectly flat. Perfectly flat. So one little tick up or down on these bars changed the slope of it. Doesn't happen a lot, but if you get a really choppy sequence, it's going to happen. Stick to the rules. If you may have been stalking a short entry because VWAP was sloped down and you're getting a pullback, and VWAP may begin to slope up by the time you get your entry bar. So it's not a valid trade. When you get your entry bar, the slope has to confirm, negative for a short, positive for a long. So where might a trade occur? Here's one. So where VWAP is sloped down, we get 1, 2, 3, 4 bars, then 5 bars. So we got our minimum of 4, and then we get this bar that changes. So you should be short when that bar closes. You should have your stop set above or right at, doesn't matter, just a tick above or right on top of the tick of the swing high. And then based on wherever your entry price, you can't really tell from Heikin Ashi, but let's say it was right here, you would set, if this is 16 quarter up to 18 quarter. So it's 2 points. So you'd set a 4-point stop at 12 quarter. What do you know? We missed it by 1 tick. No, I'm pissed. No, right? Observe that if you feel that. If it starts coming in here and it starts to go away, observe it, journal it. Beautiful example there. Diedrich says he's not seeing any bars. Can someone else, are you not seeing this chart? Yeah. Sorry, Diedrich, you might want to, I don't know what's going on there, man, but it'll be good on the recording for you. And I'm sure you can understand the concept as well. We'll have it for you. So that is the exercise. That is the chart setup. Very standard, methodical, objective way of entering and exiting. And it's going to allow us the freedom to experience a clarity around process, which we don't have yet with NADRO. But this is purely objective. It's a great process to just begin with so that we can observe ourselves as we attempt to trade well. What did we learn today? We're not naturally cut out to be CPTs. We have to develop a better mental framework and process, which we'll get to. We can do this by knowing ourselves better, our nature, natural human traders, understanding markets and the uncertainty that they present, knowing what trading is really about, and then work and make a choice to be mindful. This will allow us to remain objective, that key component. If we're objective, we can see the truth, the reality of what's unfolding. It's not going to be filtered by all the other junk. This allows us to also take control over our own actions rather than just mindlessly being on autopilot. Everything else that we're going to cover the remaining weeks ultimately hinges on our ability to do this with consistency, that is, right? You might get away with it for 1 or 2 trades, but then you're going to be making all these mistakes and your performance is going to absolutely suffer. I hope this has been helpful. We will get the recording to you ASAP. Do the exercise. Look for a report from me each night, and we will talk on Friday and take questions and explore the topic with whatever we need to. Cheers, guys. I know this isn't the sexy chart stuff, but we got to take care of this. I hope you can see the seriousness of my cry for you to be serious about this. Cheers.